Hello, everyone. Welcome to the United States Air Force Band of the West's live-streamed auditions question and answer session. I'm your host, Staff Sergeant Justis MacKenzie. I'm the music arranger and social media manager for the United States Air Force Band of the West, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today our panel. We have Staff Sergeant Michele Von Haugg. Hello, Michele.
Hi, Justice. Good afternoon. My name is Staff Sergeant Michele Von Haugg. I'm from a small town in upstate New York. I'm a clarinetist. I've been with the Air Force for a total of about 11 years now. I did my bachelor's degree at Ithaca College in music education. Then I went on and did my master's degree in clarinet performance at the New England Conservatory. And now I'm living in San Antonio, Texas with my sweet little 3-year-old and my husband.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Just off to her left, on top, you see Senior Airman Courtney Woods. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, my name's Senior Airman Courtney Woods. I've been with the Air Force for 3 years, and I'm from the smallest state, Rhode Island, Cranston, Rhode Island. I graduated from Rhode Island College, and I am on my way to the band in Tokyo, Japan, real soon.
That's awesome, and we'll definitely get a chance to talk more about that a little later on. And last but not least, a fantastic pianist. Please welcome Senior Airman Ed Knoeckel.
Hey, everybody. Justice, thanks so much for having us on today. And we're really excited to answer some questions and get some questions in from those who are watching the video. I'm from Hartford, Connecticut, and another small town up in the Northeast, like with Courtney. And I've been with the Air Force for 3 years, after also serving for 8 years with the Army National Guard. And it's been just a great ride so far, and I love making music in the band.
Awesome. Well, folks, if you're not aware, this is the second installment in a series of audition question and answer sessions that our auditions team has been putting together for you. So if you haven't already, feel free to go to our YouTube channel and check out episode 1. There we talked a little bit about the type of person who winds up winning our auditions. That is to say, what sort of musicians are you going to be working with in the United States Air Force bands? Today we're going to be answering some more questions about the music. What type of music do we play? What is this job like? And what is it like to perform with an Air Force band? So we've been taking your questions over the last 2 weeks, and we've got a list to start with right now. First question, just what is a normal day like in the Air Force bands? Michele?
Well, each band is unique, dependent upon the current tour schedule, but each specific day usually revolves around rehearsals, personal practice time, and then there's some administrative time built in. And of course, there's always time for a little PT.
Yeah, so is there time built into that day for enough individual practice? Obviously, we're professional musicians and want to maintain a professional standard of playing.
Oh, absolutely. Practice time is really up to each individual musician. Some prefer to practice for an hour a day. Some prefer to practice for upwards of 5 hours a day. And each musician schedules their practice time around whatever their rehearsal schedule is with either their chamber music ensemble or possibly the concert band. And administrative responsibilities, while they are responsibilities, are usually pretty flexible, and each musician is given that time that they need for their personal practice time. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And since you mentioned our administrative or collateral duties, first of all, I want to encourage anyone watching, if we say something that you might not recognize the term, feel free to ask us about it in the comments. We'll be able to answer it live on the air here. If you have more questions about what collateral duties look like specifically, I encourage you to check out the first episode. We had a good discussion about that there. But it's nice to hear from you, Michele, that the administrative duties still allow for time in our day to get in plenty of individual practice. So I want to talk about what type of ensembles a musician in the Air Force band would play in. And of course, that varies greatly depending on what instrument you play. So I'm going to hear from all three of you here, since we have a rhythm section player, a vocalist, and a wind instrumentalist. So let's start with you, Ed. What sort of ensembles could a rhythm section player expect to play in the Air Force bands?
Well, being that we are a military band, before COVID, there was a ceremonial marching band in which we would go and perform for the public at parades, holidays, and a rhythm section player, which would be a guitarist, a bassist, a keyboardist, or a drummer, would expect to be in a ceremonial marching band. Maybe after COVID, we'll see the existence of the marching band again. But we would play cymbals or bass drum, while their drummers would typically handle the more intricate marching band snare parts. And then outside of that, you would expect a rhythm section player to be in the concert band. That would be electric or acoustic guitar, depending on the arrangements. The keyboardist could play patches of different instruments, as well as some really intricate piano parts. You could also expect them to see time with the jazz big band. For us here, the Band of the West, that would be Dimensions in Blue. And then we also have a pop fusion group that plays a lot of corporate events or social events, and that's a mix of popular music, fusion, R&B standards, as well as they could probably see some time with our rock group. And there are rock groups throughout the regional band ensembles as well. So if you stay in long enough, you probably get your feet into each of these different types of ensembles.
Yeah, I think that definitely speaks to the type of versatility that we expect out of our rhythm section players. We certainly expect versatility out of our vocalists. Courtney, why don't you tell us what type of ensembles a vocalist might perform with in the Air Force bands?
I could definitely talk a little bit about my personal experience, because we are one of the bigger regional Air Force bands here at the Band of the West, and we have kind of a little bit of everything. And I have served in almost every ensemble in my 3 years here. So I started off in the big band jazz ensemble. I also sang in the concert band, where I was doing more classical vocal stuff. I was in that fusion, R&B, pop, funk band. I was also broken off into a jazz trio quite often to serve smaller ceremonies. I have recently been in our top 40s pop rock band, where I've been focusing a lot on that because we work quite a bit. And of course, as a vocalist, I'm sent off individually to do anthems all the time. It's our bread and butter as vocalists in the Air Force. But that being said, I've had to do everything convincingly and lean into each genre. When I'm singing jazz, I want to sing like a jazz chanteuse. And when I'm in a rock band, I want to put a little stink on it and sound like a rock singer. And I think that's something that makes at least an Air Force vocalist unique, because we really have to sell each genre convincingly.
I just love that you worked in chanteuse. That is so good. A vocalist through and through. Well, I know that in the Air Force bands, the wind instrumentalists can have somewhat of a different experience, although we do perform in a variety of ensembles. So, Michele, could you tell us what type of ensembles woodwind and brass players might expect to play in?
Absolutely. Well, I'll break them up into those woodwind and brass instruments that are meant to be more diversified in the way that our rhythm and brass and vocalists are expected to be diversified. We've got our saxophones, trumpet, trombone. All of those folks are really expected to be equally well-versed on the jazz and the classical and the pop rock sides of the house. Now, when you're talking about clarinet, which I play, flute, oboe, bassoon, French horn, tuba, euphonium, your primary duties are really going to be on the classical side of the house. You'll be playing in a chamber music ensemble, whether that's a brass quintet, a woodwind quintet, sometimes a brass trio or a woodwind quartet, or maybe a clarinet quartet. And then, of course, you have your concert band and our ceremonial marching band.
Yeah, definitely also a wide variety of ensembles for instrumentalists and wind instrumentalists. And if you want to hear more about the opportunities that the diversity of ensembles can bring you, again, I encourage you to check out episode 1. We talked there about the difference between the regional bands and the premier bands. And one of the major benefits of being in these regional bands is the diversity of performance opportunities that's available. Well, before we continue, we have a question from the comments. This is from Rockin' Army, watching from Allentown, Pennsylvania. What should a vocalist expect for a live audition? What is the process like? Courtney, maybe you want to tell us about what the vocal audition, what we expect at the vocal audition.
Sure. I'm not sure if they want me to rewind all the way from the very beginning or just specifically once you've made it to the live round of auditions.
Well, yeah, tell us about the pre-screening first.
We do have a pre-screening process, and as I talked about all of the very versatile things I've had to do in the Air Force as a vocalist, that's something we're looking for from the very beginning. We look for people to submit themselves singing a variety of different genres. We want to hear them sing rock like a rock singer, jazz like a jazz singer. Can they sing a beautiful classical song? We always love to hear an anthem. And then something that I made sure to do in my pre-screening, I mean, I wasn't asked to do a funk song, but that's something that I do really well. So if there's something that you think is your forte, definitely send us that along with the other requirements. If we've invited you to a live audition, we're just expounding more on that, but with a live ensemble. We're going to want to see you interact with the band. We want to see stage presence because we've already qualified you on your vocal qualities. And beyond that, we do like to see that you have some understanding of music theory, sight reading, etc. And in general, we want to see somebody who we could see fronting the Air Force Band.
So this question came up in the last session, and I think it's really pertinent for a lot of vocalists who are thinking about auditioning. When they submit that pre-screening tape, how do we feel about using like karaoke tracks or other type of mock-ups as an accompaniment as opposed to a live band? Is that okay?
I think I could take that question as well. We really just want to see or hear the quality of your voice, your intonation. So whether it's a cappella or with a backing track or a live band, as long as you think that that vocal quality, intonation is able to be heard, we don't really mind how you get it to us. As long as it's a clear recording, we're really listening for the vocals, and we do understand that not every vocalist has access to a live band, especially now in these strange times. Let us just hear you.
So karaoke track is okay?
Yes, of course.
Awesome. Well, I want to take this opportunity to remind our viewers, if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Those links are in the description. We're always publishing great new content, so do follow and subscribe to the United States Air Force Band of the West. Also in the description, you'll find a link to our Auditions website, which has all the information about our upcoming vacancies.
And Justice, could I say one more thing?
Please.
I'd like everyone submitting an audition to know that the audition panel and the people accepting your pre-screening, it's real people behind the email. And if you have any questions, if you think they're ridiculous, even just send it to us. It's real people behind there. Michelle's one of them, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, totally true. There are no stupid questions, especially, and this is the whole point of our live stream today, right? We're trying to remove some of the shroud and the mystery behind the Air Force bands. So speaking of more questions, what type of repertoire do the wind players specifically get to play, Michele? So I guess we're talking about the chamber groups and the concert band?
Sure. I'll start with the concert band. You can expect your concert band experience as a wind or brass player to be a little like playing in a pops orchestra. We do a lot of pops orchestra arrangements, as a matter of fact. In fact, Justis, who is leading this session right now, he is our unit arranger, and we have a great virtual performance that we're all preparing, and he's done, I think, almost all of the arrangements that we'll be performing. Now, if you're playing in a chamber music ensemble, that's where we really get a lot of creative or artistic freedom as performers, where we really, usually as an ensemble, you choose your repertoire together. In those cases, you might play very traditional repertoire for a wind trio or a brass quintet. We always have opportunities to commission composers. And then, of course, we always have Justis that many of our small groups use to be able to arrange any kind of repertoire that might be also written for a jazz or pop ensemble if we want to step into that area.
Yeah, so it sounds like this, this kind of the sky's the limit. It's not like an academic chamber recital per se, but
no,
a lot of creative liberty there.
Exactly. Yes, we do. We for each tour that we go out on, it really depends on what our audience is. Our repertoire is chosen based upon our audience. If we're going to play for a collegiate masterclass, we're probably going to play something completely different than if we're going to play for 200 third graders. It's so all of our performances, the repertoire is meant to engage our audience.
Great. I'm going to dive back to the comments real quick for our next question. This comes from Jeff Harris. Jeff wants to know if a high school bassoonist who will graduate high school in 22, so sounds like a junior in high school currently, with an associate's degree, should that bassoonist go on and complete their bachelor degree prior to seeking an audition? Michele?
Oh, okay. So we always encourage you to submit, because when you submit, you've made contact with us and you have a great opportunity for feedback. It is very uncommon for any of our wind and brass players with any less than a bachelor's degree to actually make it to the live audition. It's uncommon, but it has happened. Usually our musicians have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. Many have master's degrees, and an increasing amount have doctorates. Ed, who's on with us right now, is one of them. So, I mean, we would never want to discourage someone without collegiate education on their instrument to apply. Absolutely apply, but it is incredibly competitive and does get more so all of the time.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about the requirements for joining the Air Force Band, again, we discussed that in episode 1. But like you said, Michele, there's not you don't have to have a degree. Just common that, especially the wind players tend to have some collegiate training, definitely. Question from Brittany Harris. Do we have to wait for an opening to apply for the band, or can people always audition? Ed, do you want to answer that?
Sure. Well, let's see. Usually what you want to do is you want to be able to go to the website and see if there's a vacancy there. But, one of the steps before kind of putting, the cart before the horse is to take a look at those requirements. So when you do see a vacancy open up, then you've already had some time to be familiar with the repertoire. You've probably gone to an instructor or other mentors in your life that have been able to kind of hone in your interpretations of these works. So there is some preparatory work that you can do in the meantime until you see the vacancy open up there. But mostly when the vacancy opens up, that's when we start opening up the nets for people to post material, and we really start looking to fill in those gaps. But there's plenty to do in the interim. So there's never, being a musician, there's never a dull moment. If you're not practicing, your acts, then one day you'll know it, 2 days, someone close to you will know it, 3 days, right? The audience knows it. So continue, working on your craft, being serious about the pursuit of that. and then look for those vacancies to pop up.
And I'm going to go ahead and I'll put our auditions website on the screen here. The link to this website is available in the video description. And here, as you can see, there's great information about frequently asked questions, about joining the regional bands, the steps that happen for both the premier band and regional band auditions. And by clicking here on upcoming vacancies, you can see the spots that are open right now in both our regional and premier bands. And so this is the website that you'll want to be checking up on. Right here at the top left, you can also enter your email address, join our auditions mailing list, and you'll be part of a newsletter that announces our upcoming vacancies. So next question, again from the comments. Do you notify applicants if they don't pass the pre-screening? Or how long after the submission, the deadline there, should one expect to hear a reply? Michele, as our auditions coordinator, you're the one who heads up contacting all of our applicants, right?
Absolutely. So when you go to that website there, music.af.mil, and you see where there are vacancies, you can click on the applicant letter or the flyer that will be listed with that vacancy, and it will tell you when pre-screening materials are due. And in the letter, it will tell you when you will receive notification. So you will absolutely receive notification of whether or not you have advanced to the live round. And then you always have the opportunity anytime to circle back to us, follow up. If you've sent in your materials and you don't get an immediate reply within 24 to 48 hours of us having received your materials, please do. Sometimes, emails get, we're all working on our phones these days. Sometimes things get swiped and accidentally moved to the wrong inbox. So always feel free to check up in with us if you don't hear back. But absolutely, you'll get a response from us within a couple days.
Great. Another question from the comments. This is from Nathan Rupp, and this one might be a little tricky, but Nathan wants to know what the live audition for Max Impact is like. And I say, of course, that's a little tricky because Max Impact is the rock band of the premier Air Force band in Washington, D.C., and we don't work with them or don't work with their auditions folks, but we might be able, Michele, you might be able to speak a little bit to what that audition process is like.
Well, I do know that they have a very rigorous pre-screening process, and that those who make it to the live audition round are going to have a similar experience in the regional bands, in that you will be performing with their live ensemble. But the difference is, if you are coming to the regional bands and auditioning live, you'll be performing with our jazz band, our rock band, just as Ed and Courtney have mentioned earlier. You'll be doing all the genres. With Max Impact, you would only be expected to just be a rock star.
And so it sounds like that the live audition part of the Max Impact audition would be similar to our live audition, except you would only do the rock band portion.
Correct.
But I'm sure that you would absolutely be singing with Max Impact. They're going to want to see, what do you look like and sound like in front of that band? Our next question, and this one's for you, Courtney. Where do the Air Force bands perform, sort of broadly?
Okay, well, each of our bands has a different area of responsibility, and that area of responsibility is based on geography. So, for example, the Band of the West down here in Texas, we serve all of the Gulf states and Oklahoma and Georgia. We also serve Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. However, I mentioned earlier that I'll be moving to our band in Japan soon, and that's really exciting because the area of responsibility over in Japan are all of the Asian countries and sometimes the Pacific Islands. So it's all based on geography and which band you are stationed at. And that can always change as your career moves through different bands.
So let's say you've successfully auditioned for the Air Force bands, you're in one, you found your area of responsibility, and now you get to travel all over that area to perform for different audiences. Ed, could you tell us what the variety of venues are like? I mean, once we're traveling across those states, where exactly are we going?
Sure. So, well, I'll just share a little bit of secondhand knowledge. So I do have some friends in the bands that have been stationed over in Europe, and the experience over there is very different than stateside. So in the European band, there's much more of a diplomatic mission that directs the ensembles and the performances. So over there, they wouldn't be surprised to be playing for diplomats or ambassadors, to go to small, little, beautiful European villages and play for these intimate audiences, or also play for 400-year-old classical music festivals. But there's also a role over there of being not just in the Air Force, but also being an American. And in that way, they find themselves to be ambassadors of music and of this message of democracy. So it's a very unique experience over there. Now, stateside is a really diverse audience that we can find ourselves performing for. So we could find ourselves performing at veterans' retirement homes. We could be asked to perform at a funeral for a fallen soldier. We could be at ceremonies welcoming dignitaries into the area. We also go out to the public schools. So upcoming right here in Texas, we have something called Red Ribbon Week. And the rock band goes out there and performs at the public schools to encourage kids to live a drug-free life, and to let them know that the Air Force is also behind them living at that particular moral standard. We also perform at museums. When we did a tour last year of New Orleans, we were at the World War II Museum and the Jazz History Museum. But we can also be at national and regional conferences. So at things like the International Trumpet Guild Conference, as well as the Texas Music Educators Association Conference. So we can find ourselves in all of these different venues, but the foundational principle that's really directing all of this is we're finding ways of connecting to the audience that is out there as an extension of the Air Force. So it's really you couldn't say that there's one particular mold of a venue that we're going to be at. So we really get our instruments into the weeds.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of my favorite parts of being in the Air Force bands is we're not just limited to our home concert hall. I mean, we really do get to perform in all sorts of venues. I want to hear from each of you, if you wouldn't mind briefly, what is your favorite performance or venue that you've had the chance to play in your career so far? Courtney, let's hear from you first.
Oh my goodness, on the spot. I had a very interesting anthem gig in my first year in the Air Force band, where all of the distinguished visitors, so all of the higher ranking people we were celebrating at the ceremony, they all parachuted down in all sorts of wild formations, hit the ground, took their parachutes off, walked in for the ceremony in a big airplane hangar. And if you know anything about the acoustics of a hangar, I mean, the anthem was just incredible. It was just an experience where not only did I get to hear the stories of real heroes in the Air Force, but I felt like I got to be a part of making everyone in the room feel just a little more patriotic. It was really special.
That's really cool. Michele, one of your favorite performances or venues?
Oh gosh. Chautauqua, Western New York State. It's a beautiful arts community. They have a summer music festival there every year, and they just have this incredible outdoor amphitheater that, it just has this resonance that just soaks up wind instruments. It's just so beautiful. But so I got to play the Hillendale waltzes with the concert band. And it just, selfishly, that was a really, I thought, wow, the clarinet sounds so good in here. I sound so good in here. But it was also an arts community. So it was a piece that was very well received. So that's my favorite memory. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's a great choice. Chautauqua, Western New York, home of my alma mater, the Eastman School of Music. Certainly is beautiful out there. And Ed, one of your favorite performances or venues?
Sure. With with the Band of the West, the event that comes to mind immediately, I actually didn't even play a note for. I was there just as a support musician with some wind players, and we went to a special needs facility for young adults who have severe learning disabilities and handicaps. And I was there just sitting among these students and these residents at this care facility, and someone was in front just telling them, this is a bassoon, listen to the bassoon, and here's a flute, listen to a flute. And I just remember looking to both my sides, and their faces just lighting up when they heard live music, and to know that we cared enough about them to go out there and give them our best performance. And for me just to give my time, in their eyes, I was a superhero, but they never heard a note that I played on the piano, and it was just a beautiful event to be at.
Wow, yeah, that sounds incredible. Great answer.
Justis, do you have a favorite?
My favorite performance has to be Puerto Rico. Last year, we had the Band of the West had the chance to go down to Puerto Rico and perform down there. And I tell you what was so cool about that is that music, it's not ancillary to Puerto Rican culture. It's really central. It's just so important, and they really grow up with it. So the audience responses there were just so incredible. And when you add on to that the fact that as you all saw while we were down there, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans have mixed feelings about the United States and statehood and the military. There's all these complicated social issues, but just to be there and be a face in front of them and hear their stories and sort of humanize everything, that was definitely one of the most meaningful performances. And we got to perform in that outdoor like amphitheater near San Juan, and it was just like people spread out on the lawn as far as you could see, and they're all dancing too. Man, yeah, has to be it.
Not to mention they all bring their own percussive instruments to play along with cowbells and maracas and bongos. That I've never seen anything like that before. It really
unexpected.
Made me feel like they really appreciated live performances.
For sure. Another question from the comments: are people, if you're in the band, people who play more expensive instruments, such as bassoon, are they required to purchase them themselves, or could they be provided? Michele?
Ooh, we buy your instruments. Yes. No, you don't. The band will provide an instrument for you. How quickly you get that instrument depends upon the band's budget. You know, a good bassoon is about 40,000 something, and a great clarinet you can get for around 5,000. So, but yeah, the band provides you with an instrument. I should have just stopped right there.
Yeah, it's. As before I was the music arranger in the bands, I was a tuba player for the Air Force bands. And tubas, like bassoons, are large and expensive. And yeah, I guess the phrasing, the band will provide you one, is accurate. It might not be the exact perfect replica of your personal instrument that you know and love, but you're going to get a quality professional grade instrument provided to you by the Air Force bands to do your job. All right, great question. Moving on. So we've talked about where we perform. We talked about the venues, what types of audiences. How often do we get to do that? Michele, how many performances in a year would an Air Force musician be? How many can they expect to do in a year?
Well, on average, each Air Force band performs over 400 programs annually. And those 400 programs include all unit performances. So that includes all of the chamber ensembles, soloists, and large ensembles. There are about 400 engagements per year.
And of course, that's, you said it's all the units' performances. So that's all the different ensembles.
Correct.
And that, again, so it's going to vary depending on which ensembles you're assigned to. Some are definitely busier, more in demand than others. So, Courtney, your experience in our popular music ensemble, our rock band, y'all are working all the time, it seems like. Well, I should say at least pre-COVID, y'all were working all the time.
Definitely. The ops tempo was much higher when I was in the rock band than when I was in the jazz band. And I think that's specifically because it's financially quite a bit easier to send out 5 people to serve our mission than it is to send out 20 people to send our mission. So once I was in the rock band, I was on the road quite a bit, but it was a lot of fun. I was traveling with my little Air Force family.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely an opportunity to travel and see the world and get paid while you're doing it. I want to take a break just to remind everyone watching, if you have comments for our auditions team, feel free to drop them in the comment section. If you think of something later, you can always drop them in the comments after the fact, and we'll make sure that a member of our team gets back to you as soon as possible. And right now I want to put up a photo from one of our recent auditions. So what we're looking at here is from the recent trumpet audition that the Band of the West hosted, because no doubt people are worrying and wondering about what does a live audition look like in the middle of COVID-19. So I want to call to your attention a couple things that of precautions that we took. On the left there, you can see that's actually Michele standing with the candidate. And you can see the candidate there has a plexiglass screen around him to prevent the spread of those aerosols. Along the back wall, a little harder to see, but those are the musicians in a jazz combo that are performing with the audition candidate. As you can see, they're all at least 6 feet apart. They are all masked, those players who are not wind instrument players, and I don't think we had any there. This just looks like the rhythm section for the combo. And behind our blue screen, you'll see the panel members who, again, are all spread out, all wearing masks. And this guy right here in the foreground is an audio engineer who's mixing the live sound for the combo and recording the audition and everything. So just so you guys can get a look at what our live audition looks like during these times, as you can see, the Air Force is dedicated to public safety and making sure that we're going through this audition process as safely as possible. Once again, I want to encourage everyone here to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. Those links are in the description. And we also want to put out a little plug for an expo that will be at this weekend. This is the Actors Pro Expo. Courtney, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going to be going on there?
Well, at the Actors Pro Expo, we are hoping to tap into an audience of incredible vocalists and performers that may be interested in taking the opportunity to be in the Air Force Band. I know before I started my Air Force Band journey, I had an awful lot of questions. I was not what you would say is the military type, as many vocalists are not. And at the Actors Pro Expo, we are going to answer all of your questions with a few vocalists, tell you everything you need to know about this job specifically, and answer any questions you might have. So this series is several episodes, is kind of covering all of the Air Force Band and all of our performers in its entirety. But the Actors Expo will be just for you vocalists. Please come out. And like I said earlier, there's no question too ridiculous. I had so many questions before I started this journey, and I'm very grateful to have had them answered before I started committing myself to this job. And I know many vocalists will have the same. Tough to get all of the answers unless you really talk to somebody in the know. So please come check it out.
Absolutely. And we want to mention that the Actors Pro Expo this year is all virtual and it's free to register. And I'm going to drop the link to register for the Actors Pro Expo in the comments right now. So if you're a vocalist and you're interested in speaking one-on-one with Air Force Band vocalists about what this is like, what that transition to military life is like, we encourage you to check that out. That's this weekend. September 13th is the Air Force Band session at 3:15 Central Time. One more question from the comments. Are our live auditions in San Antonio no matter what? And what advice would you have for someone that lives far away from Texas if you get invited for a live audition? Because a lot of people right now, there's concerns about traveling with COVID-19. And of course, I mean, people are on a tight budget right now. So Michele, first question, are all of our live auditions in San Antonio no matter what?
No, that is an excellent question. We have 4 locations that typically hold regional band auditions. And those locations, if you go to the music.af.mil website, you'll see with the vacancy, it will show you the location. But let's say you're a vocalist and you're living in California and you're interested in auditioning live for us. We absolutely will work with the unit in California that holds auditions, and we will try to work it out so that you don't have to get on a plane and fly, or so that you can, so that you can have that option to drive to that option, or drive to that location.
And just to be clear, those 4 locations are here in San Antonio, Travis Air Force Base in California, which is between San Francisco and Sacramento, St. Louis, the band near St. Louis, and in Langley, Virginia. So it's great to hear that we're able to have that flexibility. Like Michele said, do check that link in the description. You can click on upcoming vacancies and see where each one of those auditions is being held. So like you said, if someone that lives far away from Texas and is on a tight budget or is concerned about traveling given COVID-19, your advice would be contact the band closest?
My advice would be submit your pre-screening materials according to what you see on the Air Force Band's website. And with your submission, let them know where you're located and let them know that you would prefer an option to audition at the closest location. And every effort will be made to get that set up for you if you're qualified for that live audition.
And I think if I could add 2 cents to that, since I'm in Michele's shop with Auditions, we take candidate health and safety very seriously. And if you do get a live audition invitation, we have scrutinized your eligibility to come in and just knock our socks off with your ability. So we don't ask people to come in and do live auditions lightly at all. We really want to weigh the risks that you are taking to come into the band, as well as our own understanding that you've got this amazing potential and you can come in and most certainly be able to perform at a very high level that the job requires. So if you do get that live audition, just know that it hasn't been taken lightly.
Yeah, definitely great words there, Ed. Last question from our submission list. Although, again, viewers, if you have something that you think of, feel free to drop it in the comments. But from our list, can I take outside performance opportunities while I'm in the Air Force bands? Courtney, you want to answer that for us?
Sure. So one thing that I absolutely love about being an Air Force musician is the incredible effort made to have work-life balance, especially in the Air Force band. They take family seriously. They take your time seriously. They take your weekend seriously. If we work on a weekend, we'll have that day made up another time. So because of this, there is an awful lot of time for hobbies that, say, I didn't quite have when I was a gigging musician, trying to make ends meet in other ways. So as long as you have commander approval, you are allowed to seek out other performance opportunities. For example, I sing in town with a local jazz band. I'll often take I'm working with friends to start a band after COVID is done. So we are encouraged to be musicians outside of the Air Force as well. However, that being said, our Air Force job always comes first. So if I had a gig on Friday with a jazz band and an emergency came up where they needed an anthem vocalist and no other vocalist could do it, then I would have to put the Air Force first. And that comes with raising your right hand and taking an oath and being in the Air Force.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. I know that all four of us here have had the opportunity to perform with groups outside the Air Force, and I'm sure we've all had to occasionally say no because, our Air Force obligations come first. Another question from the comments: would a double reed player, bassoon and oboe, would they need to play another instrument such as clarinet in marching season? And if so, what skills would be required for those secondary instruments? If I could, I'd actually like to, let me refine that a little bit. For the viewer, we don't have a marching season per se. We do have a ceremonial marching band. I happen to be the drum major for the marching band, so I lead us. Our double reed players typically don't partake, but so we have a couple marching gigs throughout the year, a couple parades. I don't know, Michele, am I articulating that correctly?
You are, yes. Your primary instrument is your number one. Sometimes we have our bassoon player that can and does play saxophone. One of our bassoon players, plays saxophone very, very well. So she'll go out with the concert marching band because she does that very well. We do have an oboist who she did learn some marches for one parade that we did, but it's far and few between.
Yeah, and I would emphasize that when people come out and play a secondary instrument, like our bassoon player, who is a very competent saxophone player, that's basically that's at her discretion. I as the drum major asked her, "Hey, are you willing to play saxophone for this? Because we need more instrumentalists in our parade block." And in general, I would say across the career field, I don't see bassoon players or oboe players being placed on clarinet or saxophone, not unless they express, "Hey, I have this proficiency and I'm interested." So no, I guess the answer to the question is no, you don't need to have secondary proficiency. And Michele, correct me if I'm wrong, but our double reed auditions don't have a space for secondary instruments, right?
You are correct.
Yeah, we're not going to ask to hear you play clarinet or saxophone or anything like that. Short answer, no.
Semi-related, a few years ago, we almost played the Formula One race where Britney Spears was headlining, and I, as a vocalist, begged our drum major to play a drum or cymbals or hold a clarinet so I could be there. And it didn't end up materializing, but those opportunities are there. If I was willing to go play the cymbals for the marching band, I probably could have.
Yeah, absolutely. And should you choose to, it happened to us just this year. We went and performed in the Rex Parade in Mardi Gras, which is the largest parade of Mardi Gras. It happens on Fat Tuesday, and it's such a fun performance that, we had someone say, "Hey, I don't play a marching instrument, but I'm really interested in playing on this gig. Can I join?" And basically I said, "Yeah, well, let's talk to the saxophone section leader. I'm going to have you play for the section leader. And if they say, 'Yep, checks out, you're good enough,'" and that player was able to join us for the parade, which was really cool. I think that about covers it for this episode of our Auditions question and answer session. Again, folks, if you have any questions that you come up with after the fact, you can feel free to leave them in the comments of this video and we'll get back to them as soon as we can. Or you can email our Auditions team directly. bandofthewestauditions@gmail.com. That email address is in the comments now. And again, subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're going to be back for episode 3 of our auditions question and answer sessions, where we're going to be talking about the audition. We're going to talk about what happens if you win. Are you committed to joining the Air Force? We're going to talk about joining and going to basic training and what sets the Air Force apart from other bands when it comes to technical and training schools. And we're going to offer some advice from our own musicians about how best to prepare for an Air Force band's audition. So we want to thank you all for tuning in. Michele, Courtney, Ed, thank you so much for joining us and for your expertise today. Again, we encourage you to subscribe, be here, be notified when we come on for episode 3. Thanks, everyone.